Good evening. I call the January 13th meeting of the Parkville Board of Education to order. Mr. Monses and Mr. Klein are both joining us by conference call this evening. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will thank everyone for silencing their phones this evening. Before I call for announcements, I would like to remind the board of our norms. Be prepared, display integrity, remain mission-driven and goal-focused, stay in the role of a board member, no grandstanding, and speak and listen respectfully. Any announcements this evening? Mrs. Newberger?
None, thank you.
Mrs. Woodley?
None, thank you.
Mr. Fain?
Yeah, I had heard that the Kansas City Public Schools received their accreditation. Is
They
that?
did. And we're very proud of them.
Yeah.
That's a win for the entire metro community. We're very
I
proud.
couldn't agree more, and so I just wanted to share that with the team. We're one Kansas City, and it's exciting when that we're all getting to the same level, so fantastic, thanks.
Ms. Reed?
None, thank you.
Mr. Klein?
None, thank you.
Mr. Monses?
Thank you.
I'll have an announcement or an update on the board superintendent search. This week, our superintendent search firm conducted focus groups with students, parents, teachers, community and business partners, and staff to help us get a picture of what our community wants in our next superintendent. We also encourage members of our community to provide feedback on the online survey from the search firm if they haven't already. We'll provide the link again in the board highlights tomorrow, and it is on our district website. Dr. Coward?
I do have a couple of announcements. I'll try to speak very clearly. First off, and I will talk about a couple of these later when we get to personnel, so I'll address those. But we have had some questions just about how we're doing the contact tracing. We have turned that over to the Kansas City, Missouri Health Department. And they are using a company called Government Services to conduct that contact tracing for our schools. And I want to let everyone know they are working 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 8 to 8 p.m., and Saturdays and Sundays, 8 to 5. So that they've received a high volume of calls and cases, as you can imagine, but they're currently just 1 day behind. And they made a call today, and we helped them out with a couple of classrooms too, that they want to get messages out to families, so we're happy to do that. And our nursing staff is always able to, and available to answer questions for families so they can help make informed decisions. And we know one of the challenges that our parents have asked for is just, could you just give us a flow chart so we can just kind of figure out where we are? And we are going to do that. That'll be updated and put on the website for us tomorrow. And so we're looking at that as we do that. And the last thing I want to remind everyone of is, as you look at our data, we have actually moved from when it was reported to us to the actual date that that person tested positive. So we're moving that. So you'll see that rather than the date. So it's the test date rather than the date reported. And so you'll see that on our data, which meant that last week data as of today had 457. And so far this week we have 277. And remember, that goes all the way through Sunday night, and we do that. So you'll see that maybe change a little bit more, and I just want you to remind you of that, particularly of when we get that and when that test date is. So that's what's going to be key for us. And so we've updated all of those so that everything matches, and so it should be completely accurate. We appreciate that. And we also, there was a request at our special meeting around some K95 masks. We already have 6,000 of those. We'll be distributing those tomorrow morning as they go out. But we also have masks for our students. We have those, and we do provide those, and so we'll have those out there as we go too. So we've got several options, and we just want to make sure that we're providing as much support as we can in this trying time. Let's just put it that way. So thank you so much, ma'am.
So I'll need a motion and second to adopt the January 13th agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Reed and a second by Mrs. Newberger to adopt the agenda as presented. Dr. Coward, any modifications?
No, ma'am.
Board, any modifications? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. We'll move to recognitions and awards, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Kirby.
Thank you very much.
Tonight we have a recognition of the staff members who received our Park Hill Star Award. So if anyone is here for that recognition, if you'll come stand up here with me. You fit there? All right, so this is an award that Dr. Coward presents every month. Every month she presents it to a pre-K or an elementary teacher, a secondary teacher, and a support employee. And so I'd like to start by giving you all an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, and then I'll give Dr. Coward a minute to tell us a little bit more about this honor.
I'm James Miscavige, and I teach English and debate and journalism over at the Lead Innovation Studio.
My name is Sherry Sproul. I'm a lunch and playground supervisor over at Renner Elementary.
I'm Mackenzie Heavey. I'm a school psychologist at Russell Jones.
I'm Kristen Mitchell. I teach first grade at Hopewell Elementary. Congratulations to all of you. Do you want to share anything about this?
Well, first I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know it was kind of a question and everybody's trying to protect themselves as much as they can, so thank you for that. But this has been such an outstanding program and we really appreciate it. And this is, so each month we do this, but the other part that's really cool is we have a lot of people that are nominated. And so each month I'll go visit about 25 to 40, it depends on the month, of our outstanding employees, because and it's wonderful because you are nominated by students, by our parents and our families, our community members, and your colleagues. And that's the greatest honor. And everything aligns with our core values and our strategic plan. And so you guys represent that very, very well. If you haven't seen their videos online, I encourage you to go see them. You will learn a lot about them. It's a great way to get to know our staff, but congratulations. We're so proud of you, and thank you for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
We'll take a group photo of you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to public comments. During this part of our agenda, we will receive public comments from patrons attending in person. We also received 2 comments from online, and they have been distributed to the board this evening. And we do have cards this evening.
We have 4,
Okay.
and we're going to start with Corey Terrell.
Okay, I'm gonna finish my.
Sorry, that's okay. Come on up, Corey.
When called upon by the board president, patrons are to approach the presenter station, speak into the microphone, and state your name before making comments. There will be a 3-minute time limit for individual comments and a 15-minute total time limit for all comments combined. The board secretary will monitor the time. In the event the total time limit expires, any remaining registration cards will be provided to all board members. Please direct your comments to the entire board. If a response is appropriate, I will respond or refer to another individual. In an effort to respect privacy, we ask that speakers refrain from discussing personal complaints involving individual staff members or students.
Hello and good evening. I'm Corey Terrell. Before the board tonight is proposed bond to fix up our aging and outdated schools and build a football stadium in Park Hill South High School. I and many I've spoken to are for upgrading our schools. However, there are a couple of items that should be addressed on this issue prior to voting it through. First is the financial aspect. On the proposed resolution under Section 1, Item B, it states that the school board will be authorized to increase the operating tax levy to 4.9907 per $100 of assessed valuation. But then, under the actual proposition, it's only going to rise to 4.6746. Does the board expect to raise the operating tax levy in the future? And if not, why not just request the 4.6746? Will any of this debt be offset by reductions in staff at the top levels of district management? The public needs to know before this goes into effect how much debt the district is carrying overall, in total, from previous bonds issued to this one. Is there a mechanism in this proposal to prohibit the district from using the money for any other purpose other than what is outlined in the proposed programs of improvements? If not, I think it needs to be specifically stated that the district cannot use the money for any other purpose, be it facility or education in nature. Lastly, I don't think the school district should foot the bill for all of these projects in their entirety. I just came back from Kearney High School last night watching the varsity girls' dominating win over Raytown South. Both of their scoreboards were LED and super nice, but around each were advertisements from local corporations and businesses. The basketball court was either paid for or is earning money through St. Luke's North Hospital via advertising. They call it St. Luke's North Hospital Court. I believe half the money for these projects should come from local corporate sources. Just like professional sports teams, the local public should not be on the tab for all of this money when other districts have shown the ability to raise money from local businesses. Thank you.
Mike Crowell.
Should I keep my mask on?
Please.
Okay. Yeah, I came prepared tonight to talk about diversity training. I understand that's a new initiative for the district. By the way, I've been a resident in the Park Hill School District for 28 years. This is my second school board meeting. And I came really prepared to talk about critical race theory and really ask you to reject that. And if that's been under consideration, I think it's damaging. I think there's a real situation where if a student is considered to be a perpetrator or a victim based upon their skin color or their ethnicity, that's just wrong. And so that's my conviction. I understand, though, that there's a kind of a change in emphasis, that there's been discussion in terms of teaching transgender issues and sexuality, especially for the elementary kids. I just thought it's not the time or the place. This is not the time or the place in a school board, a school situation. That's for parents, for churches, for religious institutions. Schools have other responsibilities, such as teaching science, math, English, debate, and all that the stars represent, and everyone else who teaches in school, in the Park Hill School District. It's a confusing issue. Transgender issues and sexuality issues, that's really the responsibility of the parents. And that's the responsibility and the privilege of churches and religious institutions. I really encourage you and want to advocate that you don't do something that is in contradiction to parents' teachings and the teachings of religious institutions that those families are part of. And we all have our foundation in terms of why we believe. We have beliefs, we have convictions, and there's a reason why we believe what we believe. Let me just read you something. I'll tell you where it comes from. And I encourage you, please, read it in context. And this is connected to the diversity training, transgender, and sexuality. Do not be deceived. Neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor the covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor
30
swindlers
seconds.
shall inherit the kingdom of God. But there's more. You ready for the good part? And such were some of you, but you were washed, but you were sanctified. You were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and the Spirit of our God. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. Stay away.
Time.
Thank you.
Sharika Barnes.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening. I had the privilege of going down to Jeff City on Tuesday to listen to the Education Committee and actually speak in front of them for a few of these House bills that are going to affect K through 12, which would be our district. And one of them particularly is HB 1474, which talks about not talking about historical facts or using things like the previous gentleman, critical race theory, which isn't taught in high school. It's a law class, but I don't know any 6-year-olds in our district that's taking critical race theory as a law class, but if there is one, I'd like to meet them. The 1619 project and various things. And so I would just like to give an example, since we want to use whose history do we want to teach? Like, who historical facts would we like to teach? Because reading through some of the books here, in our district, those facts seem to be very one-sided. I remember one history teacher that one of my children had was made it that the slaves freely got on this ship. They were so happy to come over to America to work for free. No mention of the hundreds of thousands of people who died or any of the horrible things that happened to them. So I think we need to be mindful of whose history we are going to teach, if we're going to teach history. So I would just like to talk about one thing in particular. The GI Bill is mentioned in one of the books in our history classes. And I would just like to give you an example. My grandfather fought in the military, and he was a veteran, and he was supposed to get the GI Bill. However, upon return, all black soldiers did not receive the GI Bill. And so the GI Bill, I'm just going to use some coins just to show you. The GI Bill gave things like a home loan. So this goes to the side that received it. They gave things like a business loan, the side that received that. They gave tuition so people could go to college and get higher education, or they gave tuition to their dependents, right? So that side got all that. You know, my grandfather had to work 2 jobs so that he could get a house for his kids, right? There's no tuition assistance over here. He had to work 2 jobs. My grandmother had to work 2 jobs. They had 9 kids. And I would just like to say, again, whose history are we teaching? Because this is
30
100
seconds.
to 10, right? So this means that this side has 90% more wealth than this side over here. So that is part of what those things like 1619 Project and various things are trying to teach. And are we going to be honest about those things here in our district? Thank you.
Patrick Dunn.
I just wanted to introduce myself and see you guys face to face and tell you thank you for your service. I know it's voluntary, but it's also important, and it's important. So thank you. I know the way to affect things is to serve, and again, so thank you at this point for you. I grew up in the district. I've lived here my whole life. I'm 55. I graduated from Park Hill. My children went to Park Hill. I love Park Hill in the sense of what I know that as far as an educational institution. It's and I look at what was here. I look at the history in one way, and I look at how probably half my class settled in the Park Hill district. So I still run into them. I still see them around. There's a lot in the educators that were here, the people that taught me, the people that probably sitting behind us, that administrate for a long time. And not that any of that matters. You could throw out tons of names, but first it's an appreciation. Second, just wanted to at least look in the eye and tell you thank you. So if I ever have anything to say, at least I want to introduce myself. So, thank you.
Next we have Brian Heflin by email. And then this one we don't.
Mr. Heflin's comments. Hello, Park Hill School Board. My name is Brian Heflin, and I live in Sun Point Subdivision. My children attend Southeast and Park Hill South. I have been told that Park Hill School Board members are prohibited and possibly simply instructed to not answer emails they receive from the voting public. Is this true? If yes, I firmly believe this policy needs to be changed. There should not be a wall imposed between the citizenry and their elected officials. We need to be able to communicate with our representatives, and they should be allowed to communicate back to us. Communication is the key to intelligent and informed participation in the democratic process. Please ensure barriers such as this do not exist. Sincerely, Brian Heflin.
I called I called this patron that sent the other one, and they did not need to be, they asked it not to be read.
Okay. Very good. It was still shared with the board.
It was
prior to
shared with the
that,
board,
so.
yes.
This evening's consent agenda includes items 5.1 through 5.14. Dr. Coward, are there items that need to be highlighted?
There's a couple that I would like to highlight, and it's in the personnel area, and actually one of them is here tonight, it is here almost every night, and we have a board meeting, so we do have some retirements and some resignations that I'd just like to point out, and Dr. Jill Owens has been with the district for many years and has served also as our PHNEA president and has done a wonderful job, and so we appreciate her work, and she's been faithful to come to all these meetings, and we wish her well. John Carr, our assistant principal and athletic director of Park Hill South, announced his retirement also. And so we wish John well. He's been with us for 19 years, and we appreciate everything that John has done. His dedication and his care has been great. And then Dr. Ryan Stanley at Lee is stepping down from his position, and he has done a great job. He has started that program from the beginning, and so we appreciate everything he has done. We care very greatly for him, and we're not sure what he's going to do next. But whatever it is, we want to support him, and hopefully he might even be teaching for us, so we never know. So we just wanted to mention those three. Thank you.
Board, do we have any questions for Dr. Coward related to the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll need a motion and second to approve the consent agenda items 5.1 through 5.14 as presented.
Moved. Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Reed and a second by Mrs. Newberger to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Our first action item is the approval of the 2022-2023 academic calendar.
We'll turn it over to Dr. Ritter.
Yeah, just a quick reminder of the process. The district's calendar committee began their work in October, continued through December. Then at the board's December meeting, we presented the draft of the calendar, the academic calendar for next year. In many ways, that calendar mirrors this year's calendar, just with a couple of other exceptions. Did want to comment to, or pass along to the board that we did have several comments in the last month about the length of holiday break next year. That was an issue that the committee wrestled with. They tried really hard to find a way to extend it, but in the end, the committee found that they placed greater value on our teachers and staff having at least one day off all the way through the year. And if we were to move away from that to extend holiday break, we would have had some long stretches of the year that teachers and staff wouldn't have had a day away. But we had several comments, about a dozen or so, that came in during the last month during the comment period to that effect about holiday break, and just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that the committee spent some time on that. In fact, it was probably the greatest issue that committee took on, probably took up most of their time. But otherwise, we would present this draft, and with the board's approval then, we'll begin making these plans for next year and be able to follow through with work calendars as well.
So, Dr. Renninger, I think another way to extend the holiday break would be to make first quarter extend into past Christmas break.
Yeah.
And I noticed, like other school districts that I was looking at, their quarter is ending tomorrow, second quarter.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
very important to our patrons as well. So I don't know if you want to talk about
Yeah,
that.
that was, of course, that was quite a bit of context to that conversation, is the imbalance between our two semesters and whether we stop first semester at the holiday break or not. It's been our priority to do that. Feel like that gives us the best academic advantage for students, and that there is some differing philosophy among districts, so we find that. And many districts will find themselves like we have, having done both over the last several years. And now we've settled with exactly as you said, ending the semester at the holiday break.
I assume there was healthy discussion around that as well.
There was, and fairly universal support in the committee, especially among those folks on the high school side and secondary side.
And Ms. Bowen, if I could add to that too, we did that last year because we had to, because we started so late. And one of the issues I ran into is we have a lot of mid-year grads. And so getting transcripts so that they can go to community college, particularly to our local colleges here, metropolitan community colleges, really created a burden for them, and they couldn't get it done. And so that is another great challenge we've had on that one. And we want to support all of our kids and get them to where they want to be in life. And so it is a balance, and we're doing the best we can. I think the calendar committee did a nice job of that.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that, but it was a nightmare last year, so the last time we did it, so I really appreciate that.
Well, and sometimes it's just the turn of the calendar, and I know soon it will be rather easy to get 2 weeks, just because of the placement of the holidays. So.
And the other challenge, of course, is we are mandated when we can start school now. And
Yes.
previously, we could start school earlier, and under the new state statute, we are required to only start that 10 days before Labor Day. And so that really does compress what we can do and how we do that. And so it's, as the calendar committee looks at this, they have several, I wouldn't say barriers, but opportunities to look at multiple things in order to put this together. So we appreciate their work, so thank you so much.
So as that relates to our calendar, has there been any movement on that in Jeff City? Are we still having discussions with anyone, or?
I actually will have the opportunity to meet with some of them in a couple of weeks, and I'll ask again. The response so far has been, we really haven't had a normal school year since it started because of COVID. So they don't really know how it's impacted school, so they don't really want to have that. But we believe that that choice of the local school board to determine when to start the school year is important. And so we will definitely have that on the list. And it is actually part of what you'll be talking about here in legislative priorities too.
Anyone else? So I'll need a motion and a second to approve the proposed 2022-2023 academic calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mrs. Woodley and a second by Ms. Reed to approve the proposed 2022-2023 academic calendar as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay.
And here, Mr. Monses. Mr. Monses?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0. Our next action item is the approval of support of the 2022 legislative positions for the cooperating school districts of Greater Kansas City.
And on this item, this is a standing item for us every year. The Park Hill School District is a part of the Cooperating School Districts of Greater Kansas City. There's over 32 schools that are a part of that program. And we use it for cooperative buying and lots of things, but it really does represent the entire Kansas City area, regardless of the school size. And that's what's really wonderful about this. And over the past few years, and we've been providing this to the board, it's been posted for quite some time, but identifying what are the key legislative priorities, but also ongoing legislation issues we support. And actually the first one on there is around the local control to make decisions around working conditions, compensation, curriculum, instruction materials, course access, PD, professional development, and school calendars. So I think it's all there. The one that was added this year is on the high level is supporting expansion of statewide broadband for all students. Because for some of our districts, while we're very blessed in Park Hill to have that opportunity, but not all of our students have that opportunity. And we also have other districts than part of the states that don't have any services. So we think it's important to work as a team and to do that for what's good for all students within our state too. So we appreciate that.
I'll need a motion and second to approve the support of the 2022 legislative platform for the cooperating school districts of Greater Kansas City as presented.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Reed and a second by Mrs. Woodley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. 6.4 is the approval of emergency purchase to move Park Hill fiber.
Yes, we were notified, our technology staff was notified by Kansas City, Missouri, that MoDOT will soon be replacing the bridge that spans over Waukomis. So that may be news for some people. You know that they just opened the bridge just south of 64th Street. And the next bridge they're going to work on is the one over Waukomis. And that work is going to start March 1st. And our fiber loop for our district goes right underneath that bridge. And as we go underneath that bridge, they're also increasing the piling depth from 3 feet to 12 feet on that. And so as we did our initial piece to go down and see how far that took us, we hit what I call wonderful Platte County rock. And so it is we have got to get this done and get this pushed out. And so we normally would bring this to you and have actuals, but what we're saying is this is not to exceed 125,000 as they do that project. We do believe it'll come in below that, but we also don't know what else we may hit in the process. And this has to be done before they start their work on March the 1st, and we don't want to disrupt our service for our students. And so we'll run through our redundant lines and so that we can take care of this. So, Dr. Kelly, anything that you would like to add or anything that I missed on that?
Yeah, you did not miss anything.
Okay, we'll all be excited to have another bridge out, and it always creates a wonderful challenge. And so, but we appreciate working with Kansas City, Missouri. They do help us and work with MoDOT. So.
I'm sure I know the answer to this, but we did explore moving the line.
We did, and the cost was
significantly higher.
Significantly higher. Let's just go with significantly higher. Yes, we did look at that. So, you're welcome.
I know when we put in the fiber some years ago that there was an agreement with Kansas City. Is that still ongoing, and will that affect this as well?
Ongoing. Yes, it is still ongoing. I apologize for interrupting you. My apologies.
Oh,
it is ongoing, and actually they do all of our locating services for us, and that's a great savings. And actually they were the ones that notified us about it. We hadn't heard this from MoDOT, so we appreciate that partnership, and so it has helped us. So thank you.
I presume the work will be done to ensure that we don't inadvertently have any disruption or during the school day.
That's exactly why we're doing this. Yes.
Okay.
The process.
And I'm guessing that this may add to the cost a little.
I don't think so. We think we'll be okay.
Okay.
Mr. Unruh has done a good job of studying this and working through this process.
Okay.
So.
I'll need a motion and second to approve the emergency purchase to move Park Hill fiber line as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Reed and a second by Mrs. Newberger. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. The next action item is to adopt resolution calling an election in the Park Hills School District of Platte County, Missouri for a bond issue. Dr. Coward?
Well, and first off, this has been a long process. We've been working on this for quite some time, as the board and community knows. And we have also set, and what's listed on the board documents, which people can see, is everything from our tax levy history to our bond project list and what that looks like. And you'll notice on that list there are projects that we're going to hope to do. And then there's, if the economic conditions allow, we will do those also. You may remember we did that last time on our last bond, and that's how the transportation facility was built, as we did that one. And I think it's important to note that when you're putting out a proposition, so Proposition I, as you talk about, those monies can only be spent, it's very specific, can only be spent for what is within that document. And on the questions around on the operating tax levy, that is so confusing, which is why it's so important that we provide information for everybody. And so I really appreciate Dr. Kelly will be helping me with this, but I'll be visiting with every PTA and every staff group. And I've already set up with several community groups. So if you have a community group that you would like to have that information about, we want to share that with you. I don't think there's anything more complicated than I don't believe. Maybe our taxes, but school finance. And we want to help understand that. But the bottom line on both of these is that the goal for the district and what we have worked toward at the direction of the board is actually no change. And so as on Proposition N, the 49907 is exactly what the voters last voted for in 2002. And so in 20 years, maybe in 2042, we'll ask the same thing, to not change anything. And on Proposition N, also, we're asking to maintain, it is expected to remain unchanged, our adjusted property tax levy at $5.39.55. It has been that same since 2018, and that has been our commitment to our voters. And so it has been an interesting thing. This year was an interesting thing with the reassessments. I think a lot of things happened on that, and that's an important part of this. And just a reminder that the district can move things to pay off debt, which we have done. Over the past 2 years, we've actually refinanced and to save around $8 million. but we can't use it for operating. And so that's why those informational sessions will be so important. We'll go into depth about that so that people understand these questions. And so they're required by law to be written the way they are written, but we will make sure that we clarify so that everybody understands. But when we say no tax increase, that's exactly what we're talking about. So we are very blessed in Park Hill, very blessed. And we're so glad, because I didn't think in 2017 we would ever come back with a no tax increase bond issue, and we are. And to be able to come back and ask for no change from 2002, I think is amazing also. So also would like to point out the surveys that we have done, the work sessions we've done, the input that we've received, and we appreciate very much. And these are focused on taking care of our existing facilities. There is the new elementary school that we need to build, but the bulk of this will all be about taking care of what we have. And so the facilities we just opened, Walden, Hopewell, Lead Innovation Studio, Support Services, and the transportation facilities, really there's nothing in this issue for them. This is all about everybody else and making sure we do that. And that's an important piece for our taxpayers. Take care of what they have given us and make sure we provide equal and parity across our district. And that's what we're trying to do. So be happy to answer any questions, but I think we've been through this many, many times. So Proposition I and Proposition E is what we would recommend taking to our voters if it's the board's will.
Dr. Carr, the only question I had was just the positioning of these on the ballot. So I'm guessing there will be items between I and N?
No, these two should go together.
They will go together.
They will go together.
Good.
Those two will go together.
Okay, that was my...
I don't know what goes before and after, but we will see. But
that was
ours
my
will go
biggest
together.
concern, because as a voter, I can see that being confusing if you're going in looking for the issues relating to Park Hill, and making sure that those are closely linked together, because it is very important that I understand that these two items work in tandem.
Yes. They will be on the ballot right beside each other.
Okay.
Dr. Coward, and maybe this is should be directed to Dr. Kelly. I'm curious about our bonding capacity. I know we've talked about that, and I know that we've aggressively paid down our debt as we've refinanced, and that's part of the reason we're able to do this on a tax-free or no tax increase basis. Can you just roughly, I don't need exact numbers, but what is our total capacity and where are we, and then where does this put us?
Well, you may have to help me with this a little bit, because the basic calculation is 15% of your total assessed valuation is what we're looking at. And so part of that, the question is, how much can you do for a no tax increase versus how much can you do if you increase your taxes? And those are both factors in that. So Dr. Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you right there and let you just take it from there.
So one of the boundaries that is a legal limit on how much any school district can take, as Dr. Coward mentioned, is 15% of your assessed valuation. So currently that's for us about $350 million that would be the capacity of how much debt we could take. So as we stand today, we're at about 148, and that's consistently being paid down. So this is a moving target. This has all been scheduled based upon our previous bond issues. And so by the time, if we're fortunate to have this pass, then those dollars will actually be kind of layered in over time. We would not take on 137. We wouldn't have the capacity anyway to be able to do $137 million a project at one time. And so we will be simultaneously paying debt as we're actually then taking that on over a series of years. And so although adding the current debt of 148, which by the end of this fiscal year will be down to about 130, we'll take on another 137. So if we were to sell the bonds all in one day, we would be at about 260, 270, and our legal limit's 350. That's not going to happen. That's as high as it could possibly be. Like I said, because we'll be subsequently refinancing debt and all kinds of things of it. So it would, I think maybe the answer to your question is, and now we couldn't do the full 350 for no tax increase.
Right.
So yeah, and that's what kind of goes back to Dr. Coward, is that there is a whole nother limit there in terms of how much we can do, and that's that 137 calculation. That's why the 137 is what it is what we feel comfortable conservatively taking on for no tax.
Sure, and I'm grateful we're staging it as future administrators or superintendents and boards will be able to, again, it's to the language of what it states is what we have to spend it on, but how we execute against those plans could be dictated, economic, a whole variety of factors.
Absolutely. And we know that inflation's a thing right now, supply chains are issues. I mean, all of those things are factors that go out there. I think the other thing that gets lost sometimes is that when we do these, remember, these are for 20 years. So you think about a home mortgage, you usually think about a 30-year, but in school world, we can only do 20 years. And as you guys know, as we sell bonds, you also have to use those in a certain time, so we'll have to stage that selling of the bonds also. So we don't want to hit arbitrage, which means we cannot benefit from that as a district. So it's very clear what we can and what we cannot do with these bonds as we do that. And so there was a no tax increase, and someone may have to, I believe it was 2007, and that was for the Hawthorne project. No, that was for Russell Jones. And,
Yeah, 2006.
2006, and then 2011 is when we did another no tax increase, and 2017, another no tax increase bond. I never dreamed when I did those speeches that we would do this again. But we are able to do this, and if you pull up our charts, it talks about total tax rate. The only one lower than us is Platte County, and then our colleagues in North Kansas City and Liberty are much higher than us. And you will see that, and you'll see the entire Kansas City area. So we have the second lowest tax levy, and we've held that for these last years, and that is our goal, is when we say that 539.55, that is what we're aiming at, and staying in those limits to do that. And so it is complicated. It involves the state auditor, and there's everything that plays into this. But we wanted to make sure that we are being as transparent as we can, and that's why we'll do those informational sessions. So happy to do those.
Yeah, and I think with regarding to the ballot language, I think it's everybody's desire to simplify it and to just, well, if it's no tax increase, just say no tax increase. Like, we wish we could, and we've tried every sort of way to contort ourselves and get the language that way. This has been written by bond counsel. Gilmore and Bell has proposed this. This is the same language that other school districts would use, and that's what they're, from a legal framework, comfortable with putting on there. So we are not able to do that, and that's why the information sessions are going to be so key, is to really kind of fill in the questions and the gray area that's created by some fairly vague or confusing ballot language. But we've worked hard on trying to make it as simple as possible, both on as much as we can on the ballot, as well as then during information sessions.
Well, I accept that, but I'm still very frustrated with the
Yeah,
language.
I agree.
We are too. We are too.
So I'm going to touch on a couple things that we have talked about numerous times in the work that we've done, but I think it warrants saying them again out loud. One, we did visit the idea of having sponsors, and we do have sponsors in our things. We do.
We have
Every
advertising,
gym,
yes.
every field, everything has sponsors all over it. But I think there's a misunderstanding when you look at other districts about how much money was contributed. I don't know if you can touch on that a little bit.
Well, I think those are all, you'd have to contact those districts, because I don't want to speak for them, but usually those are long-term things that are a little bit every year over a long period of time to do that. And so in those cases, these are taken on because these are public, and our parts are public, and we do some public-private. We do use our advertising to use that. If you're at the football stadium, you'll see it around the outside, and you see on those things. And so you'll see advertising all over this place as we do that. But in order to meet these needs and to also, as we put these projects out, it's just an important part to do. So it just doesn't meet the level of where we need to be to get this, and so it looks good.
And you hear numerous times, well, you know, they raised half their money for that by so-and-so, and we have determined that this is absolutely not true by contacting and talking to other districts. So
Correct.
I just want to make sure that we have explored those opportunities.
Can I say, I mean, on your consent agenda tonight, you approved the approval of scoreboards for the and these will be ready for the advertisements that we already have. And so that's part of the reasons why we're able to do this, is to provide those.
via those advertising funds. But the majority don't. The majority of those funds go to into the students' activities themselves and the annual operating, and with the exception of scoreboards, we did at football and now at the two high school basketball gyms. We're using some of that to supplement the scoreboard purchase.
And I guess I don't really have a question, but I do want to commend you all on the process, because we have had numerous meetings, and I know at one of our meetings, we kind of asked you to go back to the drawing board and start over and do more digging and request more information, and you all did that and provided what we asked for, and so none of this comes easily or without a lot of work by you all, and so we appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate the extra work and diligence that we did, because it is a large amount of money. But I also think that based on the survey and the information we have from our community, that we've created a very balanced plan across all buildings, all interests, all things that will affect a lot of students, both academically and athletically and safety and all kinds of things. So I really want to commend you on how we built this plan.
And I think one final point is, you say if we pass the bond, and yes, of course, our public needs to come forth and support this in order for us to do just that. But if you could just reinforce a sense of urgency. I know that we've been very methodical. This has been a long term of planning, but just to reinforce why now.
Well, I think the why is obvious. We've heard from our constituents, let's be very frank about that, you know, and their request, and to have, it's both taking care of what we've got, but making sure that we are updating those facilities and keeping them there. So it's both an internal parity, but it's external too. It is, you know, what our neighboring districts offer that we don't offer. But the main piece for us is we want to reflect the Park Hill community, and I think that's what this set of projects does, and that's what Mrs. Boland was referring to, because it does talk about it's about our fine arts, it's about our students with special needs, it's about all of our students in a process that's put forth. It's about all of our elementaries, it's about our two high schools. And so it's hitting all those things, but it still supports everything academically and education we want to do. So there's always a balance. We want to have that balance with everything that we're doing, but we're also a very proud community. And we want to be proud of everything that we have, whether it's our facilities, our academics, our achievements, and our awards. And we want to do the very best. And so we're proud of this and really do feel like it is answering that request we had. But also realizing that we're at a point now, we've been building, and we still need to build another elementary school. But we solved our middle school problem with the 27 issue. And when we built the Lead Innovation Studio, remember that's the first phase of the third high school, because we're not quite big enough for a third high school. We won't even have that data till 2025, 2026. And so we have made the promise to our taxpayers is that we're not going to project out what we need until we have the actual students here, which is why we use mobile units. And so that's why you'll see lots of Union Chapel and Hawthorne and Chin. And
how many mobile units do we have currently?
We just added another one.
Chapel,
Yeah.
you know, about 6, I think.
6
Yeah, we just added another one at Southeast.
How many?
Yeah, at elementary.
6 at elementary.
And we have 4, don't we?
Park Hill High
here?
School.
Yeah.
And so there's things that we need in programming, and we want to meet that program, whether it's in our culinary arts, whether it's our fine arts, updating our auditoriums. Those are just things you have to do. And we want to make sure we're doing that, and again, taking care of what we have been given.
Yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that. And just another quick point is, while leadership may be changing, you're getting ready to move on. You've done this before for us. You've helped us get through the bonding process. And I'm grateful that we're able to continue to take advantage of that expertise.
You may take advantage of me, yes, please do.
But in the same light, as we transition to new leaders, our needs aren't changing. So it's not like a new leader and then all of a sudden we have to reevaluate our needs. Our needs have been ongoing and building over the course of time. So I'm just grateful that we have your leadership to continue to drive this, and then I'm also cognizant of the fact the board's going to select our next leader to be able to help us create the continuity around what we're going to be financing.
I appreciate it. I think a strength of the district is we do things in process. It does drive some people crazy sometimes that we do things in process, but I think it also allows us to look at blind spots, identify areas that we hadn't thought of, making sure we're getting feedback and looking at all aspects of it. So I think that's a key piece.
Can I add, on the urgency question and why now? So Dr. Coward addressed Proposition I. Proposition N was actually a kind of a domino effect of the reassessments that occurred last fall, by which inadvertently, we were impacted by that by a negative $3 million in our operating budget, because there is an organic and natural sort of legal way by which, even though the taxpayers will approve a tax levy ceiling, the state auditor annually will come and chip away at it based upon those reassessments, and that's how. As Dr. Coward mentioned, our last voter-approved tax rate was in 2022, and it was for $4.99, and today it's at $4.40, and that happens just over, and you see the history of it, and it's published on the web as well. But that happens naturally, and that's what keeps the boards from taxing more than they're actually the voters approved. So anyway. A couple things on the operating side and why that is a kind of a new twist. We've done no tax increase bond issues before and been responsive to the public. The second part of it, though, is I think that we have an operating shortfall that's going to start this year, and it's just going to compound over the next series of years unless something happens to that operating rate. And then if you are taking on all of this additional square footage and all these additional responsibilities, if Proposition I passes, Proposition N, we need to operate these things that we are adding, and so we need to be good stewards of that new square footage, so that we can actually turn the lights on and maintain that square footage, and you just can't do that for free. So, yeah.
And actually, you see that in that language. That's what we wrestled with Gilmore and Bell, and you'll see it in the second sentence. It talks about the tax levy ceiling. That's the one that's set by the auditor. That's what's driving this. And so it's complicated, and that's why we feel like we want to take that time to go visit and talk. But the bottom line is, our goal is absolutely no change to our taxpayers. We just have to get through the complication of what our legal requirements are here.
Every time the public in the past, all the way back to 2006, the public has approved a no tax increase bond issue, they are entrusting the board to have no tax increase. And so this is just exactly the same request from the public, is to, if we're telling the public that this is a no tax increase, that it not be a tax increase. And so that's also the commitment that we're making as we get the information sessions out, although we can't say it in the ballot language, but that's clearly our desire. And this actually turns out to be an opportunity that we have that's unique to this year.
Any other questions?
Just a quick comment. I just wanted to say thank you as a new board member. All this, since school finance has been like way over my head, but I understand no tax increase, so that was easier to understand, and I hope our taxpayers take that to heart and really realize that this is going to also support our CSIP plan and things of, I just see like the belonging is going to start to come through when students see that happy to go to their school and see the different upgrades and the safety. So thank you, Dr. Coward and Dr. Kelly. Thank you.
Okay. I'll need a motion and second to adopt a resolution calling an election on April 5th, 2022 in the Park Hill School District of Platte County, Missouri on two propositions, Proposition I and Proposition N as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Fain and a second by Ms. Reed to adopt the resolution calling an election. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay.
I don't think I had. Mr. Monses?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, board. It'll be, the next few months will be a lot of work and a lot of time. We look forward to meeting with our community and sharing, so we look forward to that.
We're going to move on to our information presentations. Our first is 7.1, Parents as Teachers Update. Dr. Ward.
All
right. Hello, I'm Rachel Ward. I've not officially met you. Good to meet you. I'm the coordinator at Early Education Programs for the district at Gerner. And my intent tonight is just to keep everyone on the board informed of programming updates with parents as teachers that are happening at the state level. Some may have heard, may not have heard, but there's been some discussion that parents as teachers in Missouri is going away, and I just want to ensure to you that that is not happening. But there are some changes that are taking place and some minor reformatting that is happening, with all services remaining the same that are currently in place, but just some connections with our national center is adjusting. So just kind of looking a little bit at the past, Missouri is very strong roots in the programming for parents as teachers. And it really actually started in Missouri and has now grown into an international organization. So 40 years ago, I started as a pilot program to be able to support parents of newborns. For any of us that have had children, there is not a manual that goes with the child when you leave the hospital. And so being able to sit beside other individuals to process through raising the child from age of 0 up until school is a very powerful process that then expanded to across the state with funding to support families before they enter school. That has since over the last 40 years become an international organization with a national center in St. Louis. And it is not under the control of the state of Missouri any longer, but it is actually a Parents as Teachers National Center. So here in Missouri, what programming looks like now is still rooted in the initial funding from the 80s. And so Parents as Teachers guidance comes from the Early Childhood Development Act that we refer to as the ECDA. And the intent was truly to help parents with their confidence and skills in raising children to support the growth and development of those children before they are entering school. Our services are outlined in what is called the ECDA Manual, Administrative Manual, and it is just really our identifying specifics of what programming looks like for all districts across the state, and what I refer to as the Big Four for activities that parent educators conduct in conversations that they have with the families. So that includes personal visits, developmental screening, connection events, and resource connections. So personal visits are, as said, it is a visit with just a family, and it is really discussing needs that family has. There are lessons that the parent educators do conduct that are provided through training through the National Center. And they model a parent-child activity and talk about developmental milestones for different ages of growth for the children, and then discuss child or family needs that have been identified through those discussions. Another part of our programming is developmental screening, and it is a free screening for families. Once a family is participating in programming, we like to do it annually. There's a lot of changes that happen every single year just so that everyone can continue to monitor growth and development. And we utilize two different screening tools. One is the ASQ, which stands for Ages and Stages questionnaire, and the other is a dial, and we're in the 4th edition of the dial, and that is just a developmental indicator for assessment of learning. And those tools are utilized to be able to monitor growth and development and to be able to have early intervention if a child is not meeting some developmental milestones that are typical for those ages. That then leads to discussion of potential further assessment, either with a pediatrician or looking at first steps in our state, or even in our own building at Gerner, if there are maybe some areas of delay that we need to be able to foster and support. We also host connection events, and that is really inviting multiple families together to be able to connect with each other in the community, as well as parent educators, and have more informal conversations and networking. That has been challenging recently, but we have had a really great experience of going on park tours and reintroducing families to our community parks and areas to enjoy time with families and work on even gross motor skills with their children at our parks. And that's open to all the families, and it's just really a great way to have the families talk about some of the needs that they have with each other alongside those parent educators. And then through all of the activities, we focus on supporting the families with resources in our community, and it's identified as resource connections. And it is a response to dialogue that's happening. If a family is starting to share concerns about maybe some anxiety that their children are displaying, being able to help connect with resources that are part of our community to maybe look at that a little bit further. If even it is things that they're needing that are physical needs, we are able to connect with our school social worker to help support those needs that the family has. Our programming now is under a new Office of Childhood that is in Desi. That office officially opened in August, and it is one of multiple home visiting programs that the state supports, specifically focusing on education of families, where other home visiting programs can focus on the health of the family and the safety of the family and the children. As I mentioned, there is a connection that we have had with the Parents as Teachers National Center, and they have connected with Desi through a MOU to allow Missouri programs to access all documents, all resources the National Center provides without meeting requirements of other organizations. Here in Park Hill, we are very involved in providing all of the programs and all of the conducting all of the activities outlined in the ECDA manual. And I am a part of a committee to reevaluate that to make sure that we are aligning everything the best as possible as we are making some changes. Our previous data from last year identified the number of families and the number of children that we were supporting, our personal visits and developmental screenings conducted, and we are well on our way to meet those same levels of visits and helping support children, and hopefully even going a little higher. Our staff have worked very, very hard to change processes to meet the needs of the families as we've been altering how we've conducted some of our services with families. I mentioned a few times the change that's coming, and so just want to walk through what that is looking like at the state level. And the biggest part is a change with the current MOU with the National Center, and that will be ending in June, and that MOU will not be extended based on the conversations between our state program and the National Center. And so our Missouri program is looking at how to take a new path and to continue to accomplish the expectations of the ECDA and be able to still be able to meet the needs of all of the families throughout the state and for us here in Park Hill. So you may be asking, why is there a shift? And a big shift is Missouri's focus on what is referred to as universal access, where all families have the ability to utilize support through parents as teachers and do that in a way that meets their needs the best. The National Center's focus is on full program participation and implementation for every family that participates, meaning when I discuss the big four, they want all families to have personal visits and do the screening and be involved with other families and multiple other requirements. Whereas Missouri focuses on allowing there to be choice for families based on what those families desire and what they need, what they feel that they are needing to uncover with their parenting to support their children the best. And we are funded based on what has been outlined in the ECDA manual and on universal access model for our families.
So in the past, it was not universal access, it was based on?
So, it currently is on universal access. There is a belief for our Missouri programs to allow families to choose how they want to receive support, where the National Center does ask for families to participate in their program as designed. So there's not as much choice. And districts that work with the National Center do get rated down. If, for instance, if a family doesn't want all of the visits that are required, then a district could be rated down, but the family is just really not wanting all of those visits.
Got it.
Whereas with Universal Access for Missouri is giving that choice to the family.
Thank you for explaining that.
Absolutely. No. So at this current time, Missouri programs are looking at different options for districts to choose based on their level of commitment or their desire for implementing programs. So there is an affiliate path, what is called a curriculum partner path, and what is called a curriculum subscriber path. So the affiliate path is that you are a Parents as Teachers program and implementing the program as Parents as Teachers National Center has designed. And so all of the training materials are available, all the support that has been there, and you can have the full use of branding as Parents as Teachers National Center allows, but it does not allow the families to have as much choice. And the districts also to not have as much choice to support the needs of their families. The curriculum partner path is a new category for National Center, just for Missouri districts, is that there is still availability to connect to the National Center for Training and Curriculum. There are limited support materials that will be available, not the full menu for all other affiliates, but it is still allowing those districts to meet DESE requirements, which allows for family choice, and there is currently in the works a special designation for Missouri programs that are going to be curriculum partners. Then the other choice is to be a curriculum subscriber, and that is to have the curriculum materials available, but all other support materials that help implement other services would not be available. But you still would have the expectation to meet DESE requirements, but the use of the PAT, even the special designation, would not be available. So where we would be looking at moving forward is in that curriculum partner status category. DESE's work is focused on this category. As I mentioned, I'm a part of a committee to revise that ECDA manual. There are multiple committees identifying what do those support materials need to look like. So there's consistency across the state. And as then that new partner status with the National Center is unveiled, then we will have a library to be able to choose from. But it's just limited compared to what an affiliate would have. This is where we currently are. This is what our current status is. So there's not a change in our commitment. There's not a change in our process. And it's just continuing to be able to maximize what is available to us, but we don't use all of the components for the National Center that is available. We are not focusing on that affiliate status, so we don't need all of those materials. So just looking ahead, we will continue to follow all of the requirements outlined. I'm, again, becoming well versed in what that looks like, and we will, as a team, continue to make a priority to support the families with where the family are demonstrating the needs. There will be a name change throughout the state. And so while I can say that we're a Parents as Teachers program today, the next time I maybe even present for our program evaluation plan, it may be called something different. But the essence of program and services will still remain the same. Okay? Any questions?
Go for it.
I just have a question about funding. The Senate bill that you referenced, is that a Missouri Senate bill, or is that a? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So am I right in saying that the funding for Parents as Teachers comes primarily from the state?
Yes.
Or is there?
It comes from the state.
And so whatever program a school would, those three levels, the funding will follow in the same respect, or is there will there be a difference in how we are funded if we would have chosen the full affiliate, let's say?
Yeah, we are funded based on the activity that's conducted in the Big Four that I was referring to, and really two activities, and that's the personal visits and the screening, the developmental screening. So that is how we're funded. Whether we are an affiliate or a curriculum partner or a curriculum subscriber, we would still be funded in the same way.
Okay.
I think the biggest change, Mrs. Newberger, is just the fact that the national they've allowed Missouri to just call it parents as teachers because it started here. And they've gone in a different direction. And so they own the logo now, and they own the branding, and they own the name. And so really that's as much of that as anything else is what is going on here. But we know that's important to Missouri. It started here, and there's been some tears around this, to be very honest. And I think that's why you saw that Office of Childhood coming out from DESE. And so to support this. So we'll continue to support as we go forward. So that's really is the split there.
So is then your feeling then that we will be, the new department in DESE will be our guiding,
it doesn't change anything that we've done.
They were already our guiding department. Okay.
Yeah, that they were already doing the work and supporting us, and I was already collaborating with the team, and I will continue to do the same with the same team. The name's just going to be a little different.
I think that the other thing to point out that is helpful is I think that we are one of the school districts that probably is talking about this sooner than later. Dr. Ward is part of several different groups that she has the ability to both be part of the discussion and be hearing exactly what's going on with the Office of Childhood. And so what we wanted to do tonight here, kind of in the middle of the school year, is to be able to put that in front of you, because in May or June, you may receive some sort of publication or some other information that would say there's that change, and we wanted you to be aware of it, and we would be happy to come back and explain anything further, but that's why we wanted to get this in front of you guys right now.
It's really just going to be a name change, I'll be very frank with you. The funding doesn't change. How we offer our services doesn't change. How we get paid doesn't change. It's just, that's the difference. But it's complicated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next information presentation is Park Hill Online 2022-2023, and Dr. Courtney.
All right, good evening. So Park Hill Online historically was born out of COVID. So we had an online program in response to the COVID outbreak, and immediately following that spring shutdown in 2020, we determined that we needed a way for our students to learn from home when we reopened in August. So we started Park Hill Online in the 2020-2021 school year. We had 3,300 around, I mean, they fluctuated throughout the year, but around 3,300 students enrolled online last school year. We had 65 elementary school teachers. All of our middle school teachers had an online class within their contracted schedule, and our high school teachers did the same. This year, we decided that we wanted to continue with an online program with the goal of finding those students and providing services for those students who truly learned better online. So our goal of continuing this program was, at the time, not COVID related. At the time, it was related to really trying to provide services for those students who found success in a different learning mode. Right now, we have around 300 students enrolled in online services. We have 5 elementary teachers. So I have one teacher who teaches a kindergarten, first grade split. She has a grade level aide who helps her with her students. I have a second, third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher. All of my specials teachers for elementary school have full schedules in their regular contract and are leading their online classes as an extra course outside of their contract. I have 3 middle school teachers right now. Each middle school teacher teaches 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I have one teacher who teaches all middle school math, so that's 6 different math classes. I have one middle school teacher who teaches 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading, and 6th, 7th, and 8th grade writing, and then one teacher who teaches 6th, 7th, and 8th grade social studies and science. All of those encore classes are similar to elementary specials, and that the teachers have a full schedule in their regular contract, and they are on stipend or with an overload pay for those extra classes. The high school teachers, I have 2 teachers who teach primarily online. Everyone else either has that built into their schedule or they are also an overload currently. We did a survey of our online families, and of the participants who responded, 80% of those families stated that COVID is still a contributing factor for choosing online. So our goal initially was to continue online and make sure we had a program that was about choice in learning mode. And truly, we are still providing an accommodation for COVID currently. And you can see that in the ebb and flow of our enrollment. We saw with the vaccine for younger students that more of our students requested to leave and go back in person. And now recently with more COVID cases, we have seen more students request to come back online. So COVID truly is a factor still in our online enrollment. Wasn't what we planned, but it is our reality currently. 68% of our families reported that they're happy or extremely happy with our programming. 15% of those additional families were neutral on that question. 58% of our families, mostly elementary and middle, identified live learning sessions as very important for their child's success in online programming. We do offer live sessions for our elementary and our middle school students. Parents really liked the safety and the flexibility of learning online. Again, this points back to COVID. Their choice for online has been about COVID and safety. They also love our teachers. I explained all the work that our teachers are doing by sharing with you their preps. They are working very hard and they are doing amazing things with those students. Parents would recommend having more live sessions, creating a separate online school, and having live synchronous specials on core elective classes. So you can imagine that because those teachers do have a full course load and they're doing these elective classes on top of that, that we do not have live sessions for our students in the elective course offerings. Those would have to be in the evenings or in the very, very early morning, and we have committed to only doing the live sessions during the course of the regular school day. So at the top of this slide, it says given survey feedback. I think it should also say, you know, if I were to work on this again, it'd say given survey feedback and improvement in COVID. With those 2 factors in mind, we would estimate that we'd have about 75 to 100 students enrolling in online as a learning choice. So without COVID as a factor, based on the survey responses that we received, that would be our estimated enrollment in online services. The bare minimum, really, that I can run with in our current program to make sure that all of those students have teachers and educational options to choose from would be 3 elementary teachers, 3 middle school teachers similar to what I have now, with our specials on core teachers, on overloads or stipends, and the high school being the same. So truly, the smaller our enrollment gets, the less sustainable it is to have a Park Hill designed online program. So that really broaches the question of what do we do? You know, we still have some of those students who truly do flourish online. They learn very well in that setting, and it has provided them with some flexibility and some personal freedom, and it just has made a difference in their lives. So the question becomes, what do we do to make sure that we're still serving those needs as a district? And our current plan is to serve those needs by partnering with the Missouri Course Access Program, MOCAP, and their vendors to provide online services for our students. I think what excites me most about this decision, or this choice, is that every provider, there are 13 different MOCAP providers, and every provider has a slightly different spin on online. And you know, when you think of online education, you just think learning from home on a computer, but truly there are different structures that the different vendors have in place that make for very different experiences. So our program currently follows our kind of our curriculum pacing guide. So students cannot work ahead in the Park Hill online program. They are tied to those live sessions and to the learning that they are experiencing that day with their teachers. Many of these providers do have the option to work at your own pace, to work ahead, and then some of them also have those live sessions that pace it out for the student. So truly, this excites me because I feel like we can work with our families, we can work with our students, figure out what they truly want out of online, and then find them the right partnership or the right place to receive that experience. So to show that, I have a few options on the screen, and these are 3 of our best partners that we work with this year. I currently have 56 students enrolled in MOCAP, either part-time or full-time. 31 of those students are full-time students, and the rest of them are part-time, taking classes with the high school that they couldn't fit into their schedule. So Edgenuity, for example, is up here. This is a very popular choice with our high school students. A lot of flexibility with Edgenuity. You can take your class anytime during the day, any day of the week. So that has worked very well for our students who would like to work during the day, who have other obligations with their families, or maybe even personal health obligations that make it difficult to work at certain times. Edgenuity has also a very expansive course offering list. So some of our students with specialized interests have found courses in Edgenuity that they would prefer over maybe some of our other traditional electives that we offer. In contrast to that, Connections Academy is a very structured, organized program that has live sessions. They also have clubs for students who want to become involved socially with other online learners. They have additional support such as small class sessions, breakout sessions that you can do with your teachers and with other students for tutoring. It is much more of a structured schedule because they do offer those live sessions. So that is how it is in contrast to the Edgenuity or to maybe some other programs. Based on survey responses, I will recommend that elementary parents and most middle school parents look at a program with live sessions. Our families did stress that live sessions, especially in those earlier grades, were very important for their learning. And I would recommend for our high school students that they look at a program that is a bit more flexible because their feedback stated that that was something that they valued. Our goal would be to partner with the families, find the right place, and then get them enrolled in the right classes. Our timeline starts now. We will start transitioning the website this month so that families have correct information about our plans for the future of online. Next month, our high school students will start their course selection with their counselors. So they will be meeting with their counselors, discussing what courses they're interested in, whether or not they prefer to be online or in person. The next bullet down there talking about contacting K-8 online families, I put this on there because our future online students are most likely a group of our current online students. And so I really want to target those families and find out what their plans are for next year, assuming, which I know we might not be able to do, but assuming that they are choosing based on preferred learning mode rather than based on safety. So trying to figure out which of our students truly do learn best in this way and making sure that we have them on our list to get them enrolled in a MOCAP provider. I also acknowledge that there are some families who will choose online that are not online yet. They can communicate with their schools and we will get them still enrolled in online. It's not selective to current online students. We just know that those will most likely make up the majority of our future online kids. In May, we'll start contacting the families who have selected online for the future so that we can talk about what their needs are and match them with the right provider. And then we will actually enroll them at the beginning of August, probably late July, early August, so that they can begin at the same time as our in-person students. That is all I have. I did not put a questions slide in, so if you have questions, I don't have a prompt, but I will take them.
I have a couple of questions. One of them is about parents who are currently, or students who are currently being homeschooled. Are we reaching out to those parents and those students as far as we can to give this as an option. And then how are we doing that?
So the process for homeschool would be that each, parent has to declare each year that they are homeschooling. So we are in contact through, typically it's been through Dr. Colvin's office with student services and managing the communication with those families. It is both directions. Sometimes they're in homeschool and they're looking for more resources and so on, and so we would put them into something like this where they would have access to online resources and so on. And sometimes we have families or students that are in the online environment, and for some reason that is not meeting their needs, and so then they choose to do the homeschool option, which is where then they notify the school district and go through that process. And that's an annual process that we have to know students that are in our district in which families are electing homeschool.
Because I can see where that would be an advantage for some of our parents who are wanting to make sure that they want to homeschool, but they want to make sure that they are providing the best educational processes that they possibly can, and I can see where this would be an advantage. My other question is from some information that the board was presented when we were last year in the heat of COVID, and when we had more students online. And that is that from the information that the board was given, we saw some issues with the MOCAP program. One of them being that, at least at that time, the failure rate, from my perspective, was unacceptable from the MOCAP program, that there seemed to be not as much follow-up with our students if they weren't participating. And I know anecdotally from our teachers and administrators here that if we had someone in our Park Hill online program and for some reason their participation had dropped off, that we were on them and we were contacting them. And we didn't feel that was happening from MOCAP, and that the other issue was kind of the model of some of these programs being, we'll sign you up, you pay your money, either the district or the state does, and then there's very little follow-up after that for making sure that quality follows the amount of money that we are paying for the program.
I believe and this is my perspective, is that we have to own that. That they are still Park Hill students, and that we do have to provide an element of follow-up, and we have to accept and acknowledge that they are still our students. And when you do budget assumptions, you'll see my suggestion for how we might be able to devote some more energy to these students who, from MOCAP's standpoint, I will say they do send lots of emails. I'm copied on all of them. I receive many, many emails a day, but that is how they can reach out. Whereas we are down the street, we can knock on the door, we can make sure that they have internet access, we can have counselors meet with them to talk them through any mental health struggles that they might be having that are stopping them from completing their work. So I believe that we need to own that they are still our kiddos, and that we need to make sure that we are putting energy into them just the same as if we still had a Park Hill online program.
I'm glad to hear that. And I'm guessing that we will have the information from these online groups to be able to track the attendance, for want of a better word, participation, and their progress as we would our other students. I'm also hoping, and I'm guessing from just some things that you've said here, is that you have a go, not go point for the budget, that you know, okay, here's how much MOCAP classes are going to cost us. Here's how much having just 75 students or 100 students is going to cost us. What's the point at which it isn't viable anymore for us to continue with what we've been doing? And from what I heard you say, we're at that point if the enrollment projections come true.
That's true.
Yes.
So a couple of things on what you've mentioned. One is that it's a supply and demand type question right now. Last year we were in the situation of projecting about 300 students. In fact, that was close to what we were looking at. That was the low end. We thought maybe there was going to be a little bit more than that. But we are operating at probably, if we get much smaller, as Dr. Courtney mentioned, we can get smaller in enrollment, but we still have to staff it.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing this, we have some of our best teachers that are teaching online, and we need teachers in the classroom as well when that happens, when the enrollment gets so low, that we need to be thinking about that. I think the other thing on your quality comment, because I think that's a real issue, we're exploring the support that we would need to provide from us in order to make sure that those students are being followed up on, worked with, so that there's a person that we aren't relying just on the vendor. But I think the other thing that two sides of this have happened is that these vendors have learned a lot through COVID, and so the ones we're recommending have improved quality, and they're able to offer content in a way that maybe is as good or better than we are in terms of especially those specialized classes as they get to the upper grades and then the high schools. So quality on that end is, I think, improved. I think we've learned a lot about what we can and can't do and where students are successful, and what parents are looking for and what they're not looking for. And so we feel like this is something that certainly a year ago, I think we made the best decision we could based on the information we had, and I think we've had a good year with those 300 students, and I think that they're in a better spot because of the program we created. But based on the information we have right now, if we drop to 25 to 30% of the current enrollment, we're going to be having to still spend the same amount of money that we're spending on the program right now, which ends up being hundreds of thousands of dollars that I think could be allocated in a better way to make sure that students' needs are being met. We're finding that through COVID, you guys are hearing this, by and large, students and parents want to be in school. There are a small percentage of students that thrive in this online environment, and we want to be able to provide service and connection and support to help them get the education that they deserve. And they're our kids, so they're going to be our kids receiving it from a vendor that we feel like, and we're going to really work on coaching them into the most quality program that we can.
Okay. That makes me feel better. I knew there had to be.
We've learned a lot.
You guys have run the numbers.
We've learned a lot in the last year on this.
I think Mrs. Newberger, the other thing I'd remind is just in the state of Missouri now, the choice that parents have, well, we believe those are the best three options. As Dr. Courtney mentioned, there are 13 providers. And they do have that choice, and we don't have a say in which one they choose. And so that is a part of this too. That's part of the state law that we must follow as we do that. And so even back to your legislative priorities we did, one of those was about making sure that they are equal and having to meet the same standards and making
Mhm.
sure they're doing those pieces. So we're also trying to balance that piece out too as we do this process. And as Dr. Courtney mentioned, and it's no big, we can go ahead and let you know, we are talking about how do we support them.
Mhm.
And so that's what we're building into our budget assumptions also, because we know that's an important piece to have that connection. We want them to be Park Hill. And so how do we do that and how do we provide that support? And so you'll hear about that at the meeting in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
about what we're proposing for that.
Just a quick point I'd like to make. I agree with the direction. But I think maybe when we use the term online, and I know it's how we're currently structured, how we're currently financed, I think 10 years ago, only half of the adults had these, and they weren't even smart, right? And we talk in terms of online and in classroom, and where we're going with LEAD, it seems like a lot of our LEAD experiences are accessing global assets that we can pull into the classroom and self-directed. And I think with artificial intelligence, once we gamify education, how that will totally transform. And so, you know, I know we're doing bond issues, and this may be a little distant thinking here, but I think we never really get away from online. Meaning our programs continue to find ways to expand resources that we bring into the classroom, and we teach our kids because their own metaverses, I guess using an overplayed term right now, but they're becoming increasingly digital. I cannot believe the number of teenagers who are not getting their driver's license when they turn 16 because they live on these devices. And if they live on these devices, and how we just conduct our businesses now, everything is becoming so virtualized that there's a part of me that worries about giving that skill set away. But I know short term it's the right business decision to make. I'm advocating
It is,
that.
but at the same time, I think you're exactly right in the sense that those are closing in terms of the skills we are teaching them, but we're teaching them when they have this device sitting, somewhere in their school and have a personal connection with a staff member or staff members, and we're finding that that's the most successful approach is when they're in the school. But yes, we are fully aware that the way in which students learn, the content in which it's delivered to them, how that's being packaged and so on, is constantly changing. We're trying to stay on top of that. And we're doing it in that blended model.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that's what I'm hearing you say, that we've just found that kids want to be in the school.
Yeah, I just don't want to lose sight of.
Agreed.
As we look at online, we look at in classroom, I just seeing a convergence happening, and I want to make sure we never lose sight of that.
And I think it's not just LEAD, it's kindergarten. I mean, it's K-12, it really is, so.
Dr. Courtney, I wanted to ask, you kind of touched on students and the families being able to kind of select what they felt was best. So are they going to, just thinking of as a process, do they come into their counselors and say, I want to go online, and what's my options? Are the counselors being taught about all the different pieces of each platform to be able to counsel them the right way so that hopefully they make the best choice the first time?
Go for it.
Okay. So I'm giggling because that's part of my budget assumption suggestion. So it just keeps circling, and I've been vague, and I might as well just share. So one of the suggestions that I have given that's included in the budget assumptions is to have not necessarily a counselor for online, but essentially someone who fills the role of connecting those students between the vendor and the district. So that would be the person who's very highly trained on the different platforms, who's able to communicate with the families. Our counselors are very, very talented and very, very busy. So training all of our counselors in all of our buildings about 13 different platforms and the enrollment processes for 13 different platforms, and how to find the courses when all 13 different platforms put them in different places. is not feasible. So I have suggested that we hire one person to become an expert and to coordinate or facilitate those relationships between the student, the family, the provider, and us. So that person would be the one that the family goes to find the right fit, and then that person would be the point person all the way through their MCAP experience, would be the one contacting them about progress, would be the one knocking on the door if they haven't been active for a while and we haven't been able to get a hold of them to make sure that everything's okay and that they do have internet access, and really bridging that gap between us and an outside provider.
And the counselors will still be. I think part of the question that you're asking too is when they enroll, how do they know? And already in our handbook that we have, that our students, our course guide, we have courses that we already have been offering online and they're marked that way. But a student simply tells their counselor and then they will refer them up if they want that information. And so we want to get that now while they're enrolling, because what's happened in the past, they've enrolled in classes, for example, last year, then we had to go unenroll them. Remember we were scrambling last year, trying to get them re-enrolled and get the classes built and do all those type of things. And so let's get that information up front. If that's an educational choice that you like, let us know up front. And then we'll work you through the process as we're doing that.
And the counselors will still be able to facilitate their academic plan to stay on track for.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Would that be a new position, or are you reallocating a counselor from somewhere?
It would be out of those FTE that you saw where we had the teachers, and we're going from like 8.5 or 9 teachers to be where we'd have 1.
We want to provide great support, we want to provide choice, we want to provide options, but we want to do it in an efficient way. But we also want to put it in a way that is supported, and we want to take care of our own.
Do we lose any flexibility? I mean, is as inconvenient as it's been with COVID changing so many times? I know we've really strived to have the option to change as we've changed our.
Actually gives us as much or even more flexibility. And
Yeah,
I think that's what's nice, because they'll need a different, they have rolling enrollments versus fixed time enrollments, and I think synchronous, asynchronous, those type of conversations,
So my understanding then is if a student, let's say, had a medical issue that arose quickly and could no longer attend school on a daily basis, then this would be an option even in the middle of a semester.
And we've been doing that.
We already do that.
We already do that.
We do that with, even in our discipline process.
Okay.
We need students to have access to quality coursework.
Yes.
That's something we already do.
Okay, good. I mean, that's another plus then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Courtney.
We have information written items tonight, four of them, items 8.1 through 8.4, which are all relative to bids, contracts, agreements. Any questions for Dr. Coward? We'll move on to policies, procedures, and forms. We have policies and procedures on this evening's agenda as information items. Items 9.1 through 9.4 are policies. The board will be asked to take action on these policies at the January 27th regular meeting. There's also one procedure, item 9.5, and no board action will be required. That's informational. Any questions for Mr. Fulgham?
I just have one on the timing of this. The school board election ballot placement, we won't fully implement this till the end of the month. Will this be for this April's election, or will it be after that point?
Yeah, we're kind of ahead of the game on actually implementing it.
Okay.
So this is just to catch up, have our policy reflect the new statute. But for the filing period that just happened,
Yes.
We've complied with the new timing.
And on the political campaigns, there might be some items there that would affect the current say, for example, the bond issue or the school board election, once again, would it go into effect for this election or for next election?
It's in effect for this election.
Okay.
I don't think the language change will have too much of a significant impact. It's pretty similar. I think it's just kind of trying to clarify what was already there. And in fact, in our Employee Insider, I had a reminder go out to our staff about those obligations just yesterday. So we're on that. But yeah, that statute's in place. So this is to just have our policy mirror that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fulgham.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 10.0, public comments from the posted agenda. Are there any patrons that wish to address the board regarding any items from tonight's posted agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to board member reports and requests. Mr. Fain?
None, thank you.
Ms. Reed?
Thank you.
Mrs. Newberger?
Yeah, I actually have two, and one is, was remiss on bringing this up on 8.3. I know that has been a long-standing issue within the district for the communications equipment. That has been a concern not only within the district, but with our law enforcement partners. And so I'm glad that we're finally getting that fixed. My other question kind of also is with a previous item, which made me think of, I'd kind of like to know what's going on at Plaza with the issue with the gymnasium.
So we
if you
haven't
just
given
would
an
let us-
update. Right now, it's with the structural engineers.
Okay.
And they have not gotten back to us, and they are trying to give us the best option to do with that roof at the Plaza gym. If people don't know what we're talking about we have a roof problem at Plaza. Remember, Plaza is one of our oldest buildings, so it has wood structure trusses. But then there was a drop ceiling put on and created some weight, and so it really is we want our structural engineers to give us that information and that advice of what the best options are to do. So as soon as we have that, we will bring that to you so that we can resolve that issue. It's been a little slower than we hoped it would be, but I want to make sure they have their information right, and they're the ones who will be responsible for those calculations, so let's make sure that they're correct.
Absolutely.
So we'll get that done as quickly as we can.
Absolutely. What had just brought it to mind was the fact with, we're now in the heart of the winter, and so that having that facility out of use might be causing some challenges there.
It has. They're very fortunate to have two gymnasiums in Plaza, which makes it fine, and Dr. Singletary has done a wonderful job working with that and working with our other middle schools.
Thank you.
Mrs. Woodley?
No, thank you.
Mr. Klein?
None, thank you.
Mr. Monses?
None, thank you.
I don't either. I'll need a motion and second to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Chapter 610, Section 21 of the revised Missouri statutes for the purpose of discussing matters relevant to subsection 1, legal, and 3 and 13, personnel.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Reed and a second by Mrs. Woodley to adjourn to closed session to discuss legal and personnel matters. Mrs. Hips, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Bolin?
Yes?
Fain?
Yes.
Newberger?
Yes.
Reed? Yes. Woodley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Board members, please turn your mics off. We'll take a short break. Let's be back at 8:30. And remember to stay seated until the stream fades. Thank you.